Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Okay, let's do the ocean song. You sing it. You know how to play it? You know how to play it? Oceans. You know how to play it?
Not exactly.
Should I show you? B minor, G, D, A. Hold on, everyone. I'll play it and you sing it. I have to get the right sound. Krishna Krishna Hare Hare. Govinda Govinda Govinda.
Hare Krišna, Krišna Krišna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Krishna, Hare Krishna,
Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama,
Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare,
Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna
Krishna Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna
Krishna Krishna Hare Hare. Wait for him.
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare
Hare Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare
Hare Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama Rama Hare Hare
Hare Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare
Hare Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare
Hare Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna
Krishna Hare Hare
Hare Krishna
Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna
Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare Krishna,
Hare Krishna,
Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama,
Rama Rama,
Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Gauranga Nityananda, Hare
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Govinda.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
One more time, everybody together. Hare Krishna,
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hari Go Premanandi, Hari Hari Go. Shri Panchatattva ki jai. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krišna. Hare Krišna.
Krishna Krishna.
Dobrodošli vsi skupaj. Hvala, thank you for wonderful bhajans. And zdaj bomo imeli predavanje, torej danes je naš gost njegova milost Mahatma prabhu. Bom nakratko nekaj o njemu povedala. Torej on se je pridružil ISKCONu leta 1969 in je služil kot predsednik templa, distributer knjig, vodja sankirtane, univerzitetni pridigar in je tudi učitelj in sodirektor inštituta vedskih znanj v Indiji. Je dobro znan po svojih posneti glasbi, kot ste slišali tudi danes, in svojih seminarjih. Je tudi sodirektor Bhakti Life, to je neprofitna organizacija, ki uči prakse predanega služenja, interaktivnih delavnic, raznih duhovnih umikov, kakršnega smo imeli tudi sedaj. Tako da jaz ne bom več govorila, bom dala kar besedo njemu. Torej, naslov predavanja pa je Duhoven, ne pa religiozen. Torej, jaz bi kar povabila. Maharaj, please. Thank you for your bhajans and everything. Hare Krišna.
Who's going to translate?
Samo še trenutek, se opravičujem, za prevod je poskrbljeno. Torej, predavanje bo v angleščini, tisti, ki ne razumete angleško, slušalke so pri tam gospodu v belem, dol Chandra, pa bi prosila, če jih lahko pol na koncu še vrnete nazaj.
We're going to do something special, different. No, you should put a chair. Yeah, okay, put it here. Krishna Govinda. Haribo. Gauranga Nityananda. Krishna, okay. Today, right here at this temple, we're doing a podcast. I'm not giving a lecture. I'm going to be asked questions. And Leela Sukha will ask questions to me, and we'll have conversation. What do you think? Yes. See how it goes? Yeah. It's more interesting than just talking. And what about translation? Okay. Fantastic. So, where's the book?
Depends on which language you want.
We have a book. I once was riding a bike and it was raining and I fell off and I tore the ligament on the inside of my knee, the outside of my knee, and what's called a meniscus. And I couldn't really walk, so what did I do? I wrote this book. Well, this book was in my head for like 10 years, so I couldn't do anything. I wrote this book. And on Friday it was published. both in Slovenian and Croatian. And so I can't pronounce it. Should I try? Duhoven, Nepa, religiozen. Spiritual but not religious. Yeah. So Lila Sukha thought, well, why don't we just have an interview on this topic? So that's what we're going to do. And then you'll have an opportunity if you want to get this book. This book was especially written, I mean, everyone will like the book, it's interesting. It was especially written for people coming to Krishna consciousness who are on the spiritual path to explain everything very clearly, easily, in an entertaining and enlightening way with practical exercises. I mean, I had devotees edit it and they said they liked it, but it wasn't written for practitioners as much as it was for people coming, but it's interesting. And it's also, it will also, if you're communicating to other people about Krishna, this book might help you with some ideas. So they're going to be available after class, and I can even sign some if you like. In case I become famous, then you'll get rich with my signature. You'll have it. Okay. So. Okay. So we'll go for 45 minutes and then you can ask some questions. This is a podcast, but it's not being recorded, or is it?
It is.
Oh, okay. All right.
Okay, so
This is your moderator, the one and only, Lila Sukha.
So the first question is, there's this term you have in your book called spiritual bypassing.
Yes.
If you can define it, because we see this in spiritual communities, can you tell us more about that?
Spiritual bypassing is a word that was created, I think, by a Buddhist teacher or monk. And it was the phenomena that many people come to spiritual life to solve their problems, but actually they just hide from their problems. So they think, I have all these problems, I'll just chant Hare Krishna, I don't have to deal with them. And they kind of bypass the problem, thinking, if I just chant, the problem will go away. But they're not really dealing with the problem, they're running from it, or running around it, or not, maybe in some cases, not noticing the problem. And some of you might say, but won't chanting solve the problem? It will solve many problems. But sometimes we use chanting to run away from problems, or to not confront problems, or suppress problems, or pretend we don't have problems. I'll give you an example. Would you like an example? Yes. Would you like an example? Yeah. So there was a devotee that used to talk to me every once in a while, and he would smoke. He'd said, oh, today I smoked. Every once in a while, maybe once a month or so. And then he would say, see me another day, and he'd say, and today, and last night I drank. I said, there are programs to help people stop smoking and drinking. Why don't you go to one of those programs? No. I just take shelter of the holy name. That'll do everything. And so he went on smoking for like 30 years and drinking periodically for 30 years. And then he said, I finally overcome it, right? And he could have overcome it in about 3 weeks just in a program instead of 30 years. So that's an example of spiritual bypassing. He didn't want to confront the problem. He thought, I'll just chant. But he was really hiding from the problem by chanting, not dealing with it. That's spiritual bypassing. So that's something to be aware of, especially because all of us come to spiritual life kind of to run away from our problems, isn't it? So many problems. I'll just come to spiritual life and just hide under the shelter of the holy name, which of course is good, but it can be taken too far, and it can backfire. That's the idea. Any of you can relate to that? Like you don't. You have a problem and you don't want to deal with it. And so you just take shelter of the holy name, but the problem doesn't go away because you're not dealing with it. Yeah, and Krishna tells us not to bypass because he says you should control your anger, you should control your desire, you should be tolerant, all these things. He doesn't say, just chant Hare Krishna and don't worry about it. He says, practice tolerance, humility, control your senses, and chant Hare Krishna. Okay? Do I have a section in my book on spiritual bypass? I wrote this book like 7 years ago. I can't remember exactly what's in it. Is there something on spiritual bypassing? Okay.
So how can we be religious but not spiritual?
That's a chapter title or subheading. The chapter title in my book, Spiritual But Not Religious, is Religious But Not Spiritual. Well, we have an example that's given in our books. Somebody is worshiping the deity, but they don't have respect or kindness towards people. They have all respect towards Krishna, but not to anyone else. So they're very religious, devoted to worshiping Krishna, but they may mistreat other people. They may not be developing spiritual qualities. Like we have been given 26 qualities that we should work on. Does anybody know any of those 26 qualities? Kind, gentle, kind, gentle, tolerant, meek, compassion, humble. Kind, humble, I have a song. Kind, humble, and meek, a well-wisher to everyone. He doesn't need more than required. He is blah, blah, blah. Who knows? Who heard that song? Something? You know it? And tolerant. Yeah. Anyway, there are 26 qualities of a devotee. And so one could theoretically, externally practice many principles of Krishna consciousness, but not necessarily develop those qualities. So you'd be very religious, but not genuinely spiritual. You may not be developing humility or empathy, generosity, tolerance, patience, sense control. What to speak of killing in the name of God? That's pretty much the epitome of this problem. I've been places where people were very religious, extremely religious, and extremely unspiritual at the same time. Like extremes of both. I don't know if you've ever seen it, but I've been places with extremes of both. Have you seen? You know, you could be a Smarta Brahman, perfect. You do everything perfectly, and you go home and beat up your wife or something, you know, like that. Something like that. It happens. Hare Krishna. Okay.
So Srimad Bhagavatam says that actions that don't help us develop love for Krishna are useless. How can we, if we're focused on the rituals, how can we develop feeling for Krishna while doing devotional service, that we don't do it mechanically?
Oh yeah. So he's asking that sometimes we do Krishna consciousness mechanically, and we're doing everything, but love for Krishna is not developing. So the question is how to avoid that. I think the one story that illustrates this really well is Krishna, before the battle of Kurukshetra, Krishna went to Duryodhana to try to convince him that this battle is not worth it, and you should just give the Pandavas some land and we won't have to fight. And Duryodhana said, no, I will not give them any land. And then Duryodhana, as a king, prince, said, Krishna, why don't you stay with me tonight and I will feed you and take care of you? And Krishna said, no. I don't want to stay at the home of someone who doesn't love me. You wouldn't want to either, right? Nobody would. So he said, no, I'm going to stay at the home of Vidura. So by social classification, Vidura was considered in that society lower. And Duryodhana was considered higher. And so Duryodhana couldn't understand, why would you want to stay with someone lower? And he said, because he loves me, he's my devotee. I want to stay with him. And then the story gets better, you may know. Such a beautiful story. So Krishna apparently did not tell Vidura he's coming to his house. He just showed up. Could you imagine Krishna one day just shows up? What do you do when Krishna shows up? So in an Indian home, when the guest shows up, the first thing they run for is like water or prasadam, right? Feed him, give him. Yeah. So they went to find something to feed him. And they were so overwhelmed because Krishna had come to their house that Vidura's wife peeled some bananas. Apparently that's all, they didn't have anything readily available. So just peel some bananas and give Krishna the bananas, but they were so overwhelmed, they gave Krishna the banana peels instead of the bananas. That was a Bhakta Burfi moment. Yeah, backwards, But why is this story so beautiful? Because Krishna ate the banana peels. Oh, very nice. And then they realized that they gave him banana peels instead of the banana. He said, no, it's very nice. I enjoyed it. So, if you ever think you can please Krishna just with externals, this is the story for you. Because banana peels are not very pleasing, are they? I mean, go home tonight and eat banana peels and think about this story and think, how is Krishna enjoying these banana peels? Because I can't really eat them. Why was he enjoying them? Because it was offered by his devotee. So, this story is it's like the essence of bhakti. It's about how you offer it, not what you offer. And everyone's looking for love. And you know why everyone's looking for love? Because Krishna's looking for love. And we wouldn't be looking for love if he wasn't looking for love. And that's all he wants from us. And there's nothing you can do to impress him. Do you think you can impress Krishna by giving a big donation? How much is a big donation for Krishna? Yeah, so whatever we give is not impressive. Of course, if all you have is 10 euros and you give 9 euros, that Krishna's impressed with that. But it's not an external show, it's a show of your surrender. So, anything you can do well, Krishna can do better than you, right? Do you ever make this mistake of trying to impress someone who's 10 times better at what you're trying to impress them with? And when they finally show off, you're like, oh my God, I'm such a fool. You ever do that? Yeah. So with Krishna, it's what are you going to impress him with? How you sing, how you paint, how you dance? We can't impress him externally. We can only impress him with our bhakti. And that's all he wants. Right? You can give Krishna a leaf. Govardhan, this Govardhan hill pastime. They were offering to Govardhan all day. They were offering food and Govardhan wasn't full. And Balaram said, just put a tulsi leaf. That will satisfy him. All day, all the food in the village. They gave Govardhan all the food in the village. There was nothing left. And they couldn't give him any more, so he said, give him a tulsi leaf. So, one tulsi leaf satisfied him. Wow. Hare Krishna. Or one flower. You pick a flower. You offer it with devotion. So, Krishna says, anything you give me, even a leaf or a fruit, a flower, water, I'll accept it. if it's offered with bhakti. So, I think we have another question like this, but maybe I'll answer it now. In our society, especially in the secular world, you are evaluated by performance, at least in the workplace, right? And in school. You're evaluated by performance. You're respected for high performance, you're minimized for low performance. You're respected if you look good, if you dress well, if you have a nice car, you live in a nice neighborhood. We're respected for so many external things. And then you come to bhakti and you try to do the same thing in bhakti, but it's not going to work because you can't impress Krishna with externals. But we're conditioned to think our value is in what we produce, what we achieve, right? And so then we think, oh, I can't do great things for Krishna, so I must be useless. That's not the way Krishna thinks. Because all those great things you do for Krishna aren't really that significant anyway. But he sees the mood with which you do it. So, you know the story of the sparrow, right? The sparrow, and the monkeys were building a bridge to Lanka. And they were throwing, Hanuman's big, huge monkey, he's throwing big boulders, and they write Rama on the rocks, and then it floats. If you don't write Rama, the rock won't float. So they're building a bridge with floating rocks. Quite an engineering feat, indeed. And there's one, was it a sparrow or it was a squirrel. Squirrel. And there's a squirrel and he's kicking sand in the water, to help make the bridge. And I think it was Hanuman, like, get out of the way. And Lord Ram said, actually, he's doing as much as you are. He's doing what he can, and all he can do is kick in some sand. You can pick boulders. Do you ever think about this story? It's really significant if you think about it, because this story so well embodies the principle of devotion, because he's really not doing much. Basically, he's not contributing anything significant. If he doesn't kick his sand, they'll still build the bridge, right? But Lord Ramchandra says, he's doing as much as you are, because he's only this big. So according to his size, he's doing as much as the big monkeys. So that kind of undermines everything society tells us about what is success, right? So for us in Bhakti, in Krishna consciousness, success is our devotion. And if you do, Prabhupada said, many times Prabhupada said, if you could make Krishna happy, then what more would you want? That's like the highest achievement. And then he's saying that you can make Krishna happy just like offering a little bhakti. It's so easy. Wow. Krishna's easy to please. That's wonderful, isn't it? Hare Krishna. Did I answer your question? Or I answered 2 questions, I think. 2 for the price of 1. Okay.
How can we impersonalize Krishna while we chant japa?
Oh, yeah. Well, we just had a japa retreat. Next year, I will hope you all come, because it was amazing. And those who didn't come, I feel so sorry for you. I'm going to cry tonight. It was amazing. It was like so many realizations. It was like, wow. It was like, wow. Wow, man. And that was what we used to say in the hippie days when we were intoxicated, because we couldn't really say anything. It was like, wow. That was the description. So that's the description. And so some devotees are having this realization that when we chant Hare Krishna, we just think we're making a sound, but we don't realize that it's a person. We're connecting with a person in the form of sound. So I kept saying, isn't it interesting that we have turned our back on Krishna and we can still turn our back while we're chanting his name? We can still impersonalize Krishna. It's possible. Because by just chanting, and not being cognizant that I'm connecting with a person. So we did an exercise. It was was it heavy? Maybe it was. We did an exercise where you imagine Krishna sitting in front of you, and you have to talk to him. And you have to tell him, I'm sorry for turning my back on you, and I'm sorry for chanting unlimited numbers of bad rounds. And I'm sorry for whatever else you want to say you're sorry for. That was very personal, wasn't it? I was like, could you imagine sitting in front of Krishna? Wow, how would you feel? You know, it's like it's pretty heavy. So we told Krishna, I'm really sorry I've chanted bad rounds. That's personalism, isn't it? I'm not going to do that again. I'm sorry for the sins I've committed. I'm not going to do that again. That's personalism. And when we're chanting and we're distracted and our mind is everywhere, that's impersonalism, because we're not treating Krishna as a person. We're treating him as a sound. That's not a person. Because in our experience, a sound is not a person, right? Sound is a sound and a person's a person. But Krishna is the sound. And so when we chant, we're supposed to be cognizant that this is a personal connection. Satchidananda Swami said many times, when we're chanting, we are repairing our broken relationship. There he has that. Is there a book he wrote? Broken Names, or a poem or something? Or a chapter or something? Does anybody know? There's a book, Broken Names, yeah. Broken names, what am I chanting? A broken name, which has created a broken which has not mended my broken relationship. Yes. Some of us have a little resistance to Krishna in a personal way because relationships are difficult, right? I mean, in this world they're difficult. Anyone who's married knows it's difficult. And those same similar difficulties, we have, I believe, a fear of a personal relationship with Krishna. That is also difficult, because it's demanding. Krishna has demands. And sometimes we can be more comfortable in an impersonal relationship. Panchatattva ki jai, Shishigonitai ki jai. No, Vishnu Vadaya Krishna. It's harder to be impersonal with the deities. It's easier with the holy name. What's your realization, Alanat?
The holy name is a person, put our emotions into it, and we can get a whole world of leelas. It was so good, that Japa retreat. I was almost in a leela that I fell into the mud. And it felt like I was running after Krishna, and he said, not so quick, you gotta chant some more. And so, just outside we were talking about it and looking at the japa affirmations and realizing 55 years of experience of actually realizing that just in 3 words in the 16-syllable Mahamantra, we can have access to Krishna. And just walking today, doing 3 rounds, low on sleep, too much to eat, as the Hare Krishnas always do. But Krishna is reciprocating as a person because we actually put our heart and emotion into it. And so I just want more and more of that now.
Yeah. And we were saying also, this is beautiful. Yeah, this really personalizes Krishna. Thank you for that. That if we remember how we came to Krishna consciousness, or how we are now coming, one thing very striking comes to mind, that all those events that brought us to Krishna were organized by who? Who made those arrangements? A person. Right? His name starts with a K and ends with an A. That person made those arrangements for you, personally. And everyone who's come to Krishna consciousness has come in interesting ways. We all have interesting stories of things that happened to us. And sometimes bad things happened. And those bad things were necessary. You want to hear my story? It's really interesting. You're going to have to hear it even if you don't want to, because I have the microphone, so sorry for that. But when I was young, in late teens, that's when I came to Krishna consciousness. I was not an avid reader. I was more active physically with sports and music and like that. And I think I only read one book in my whole career in school outside of what I was asked to read. I just didn't like to read. What was that book by Hermann Hesse? There's some book by Hermann Hesse. Siddhartha. I read the book Siddhartha, yeah. That was the only book I read on my own. And so I went to school in a place called Berkeley, and there's streets that run into the campus, and there are cafes and bookstores, and like many campuses have these are huge campuses, like 300 acres or whatever. And I walked into a bookstore, and why would someone who doesn't read walk into a bookstore? Does that make any sense? It's like you're walking down the street and there's a golf shop, and you don't play golf, and you walk into it and you're looking at golf clubs. It's like, huh? What? So I was in the bookstore, and I was walking around, and I was asking myself, why are you in the bookstore? Because you don't like books. You just like to go and ride your skateboard or something. And there's a lot of books in a bookstore, and I pulled a book off the shelf out of all the books. What book do you think I pulled out? Bhagavad Gita. And this little voice said inside, and we know who this voice is, you should read this book. Like, who's doing that? And the good news is, it wasn't Prabhupada's Gita, and I didn't have any money in my pocket. But like the next day on campus, Hridayananda Maharaj, who was then Howard, Bhakti Howard, was sitting at a table full of Bhagavad Gitas with a big sign, Bhagavad Gita class, 4 units. 4 units is the largest number of credits you can get for a class. And he had convinced a professor to let him teach the class Bhagavad Gita, just like you'd come here to the temple, and we would get credit for it as a philosophy class. That was pretty easy, wasn't it? There was no homework. Just go to the temple twice a week and listen to Bhagavad Gita and eat popcorn and milk at night and get an A in philosophy. It's like, who arranged that? Hello? And I was in school. I had no idea why I was there. I had, what am I doing here? Why am I here? Hare Krishna. Well, I didn't say Hare Krishna. It was just, why am I here? And Krishna said, okay, well, we have a way we'll give you a reason to leave. Because I was like, I need a reason to leave. I didn't want to be there. I needed a reason. But, and then I looked back on my life, and I'm sure this is the same for all of you. There were certain events, and they all had to add up so that when I got the Bhagavad Gita, I could read it and become a devotee. And if I didn't go through all those events, if Krishna said, here's the Bhagavad Gita 1 year before that, I would have probably not looked at it. And I'm not an avid reader, and I read the Bhagavad Gita twice, and the semester is 10 weeks, and I read it twice. So I was, and I was looking, I had this experience, this one. I can guarantee you, if I didn't have all those, I wouldn't be a devotee. And then I was thinking, oh my Govinda, you arranged every single thing for me. That's personalism to the extreme, isn't it? And then I thought, everyone has their story. It has to be this way for every one of you. What a meditation, isn't it? That's personalism. But we could impersonalize that and not even recognize that it was a person who knew what we wanted and knew exactly when to give it to us. Wow. Hare Krishna. So just be careful. Don't impersonalize Krishna. You can talk to him, pray to him, yes.
I have a follow-up question.
Okay.
So often, myself, I speak for myself, I can mess up. Like buying a flight ticket a month ahead of the actual day that I wanted and missing Lithuania with you. Losing my shoes or something. And often when these things happen, we say, Krishna, why did this happen? You know?
Because you ate too many gulab jamans, that's the reason.
I tried to go for 64 of them. Didn't work. It was way too much sugar. Wouldn't recommend it. Please don't try it. But often we can say, oh Krishna, like why did you do this? Why am I here? Why am I in this situation? But it's actually ourselves who are put into it. But Krishna gives us so many signs, like, hey, did you forget the sock the other day? Or hey, did you forget your dhoti hanging somewhere? You know, and it's just like you just mess up something much bigger at the end. And so when do we know that it's actually Krishna's arrangement, or is it my arrangement?
This is like the perennial question. How do I know if I'm totally spaced out? Or if Krishna's totally spaced out? Yeah. Well, that's easy to answer.
I'm so sorry I forgot your medicines the other day. That was so silly.
Yeah.
So spaced out.
He's asking, sometimes something happens and we're trying to trace out why. Is it Krishna's arrangement or did I do something? I think you would know if you did something. If you did nothing and it happened, it's probably Krishna has a reason. And if you've done something, then you're getting a reaction. Once devotees were driving to Rath Yatra. It's pronounced Ratha Yatra, not Ratha Yatra. Did you know that? Rat. It's a rat. A rata, not a ratha. In Sanskrit, if you want to be precise. It's Ratha Yatra. Anyway, I'll probably pronounce it wrong also, but just, at least you know. So once these devotees were driving about 400 miles to Ratha Yatra, and they ran out of gas, petrol. Yeah, we call it gas, you call it petrol. They ran out of petrol. So they missed it. And they were late. You know, I guess they definitely ran out of petrol in the middle of nowhere. Because I know where they lived and I know the road they had to drive. And these roads, it's through the desert. And you can be up 70 miles from the nearest gas station, petrol station. So they finally got there late and they met Prabhupada and they said, Prabhupada, it was Maya. We ran out of gas. And Prabhupada said, do not blame your stupidity on Maya. So that's a good lesson. Do you ever do that?
Yes.
You do something stupid and you blame Maya. Oh, it was Maya, I forgot this. No, it was Maya, yeah, but it's not her fault. You forgot. Yeah. Yes, when you want it. But sometimes Krishna gives not forgetfulness all the time. You know, I see Krishna in him everywhere he goes.
Divine potency.
Sometimes we do something stupid and we think it's our karma. You know, no, you just did something stupid. It's not your karma. Well, now it's your karma for doing something stupid, but it's not previous karma. So that's another mistake that Bhakta Burfi makes. Bhakta Burfi does everything wrong. You know Bhakta Burfi? But he's a cartoon character, does everything wrong, total fanatic, misunderstands everything. So, you know, Bhakta Burfi makes a huge mistake. It's Krishna's mercy. The car was stolen, you left the keys in. Krishna must not want us to have a car. He wants us to walk. It's better for our health. He knows we're not healthy. That's Bhakta Burfi. More? Or are we finished? Okay. We have 15 minutes if you'd like to ask questions. It doesn't have to be entirely limited to what we discussed. You can expand the topics.
Hare Krishna.
I have 2 questions.
Okay. First one's free.
Okay, first one. Okay, it's
free.
the short one.
Second one's 50 rupees. Pay my secretary, and I hope he doesn't lose it.
Okay. So the first question is from morning lecture, initiation lecture, when you were sharing that you chanted every day for 64 rounds because Prabhupada said first chant 64 rounds. And I always wanted to know for how many days or months you were doing this before it came to 16 rounds.
Did I say that?
You were talking about 64 rounds, yeah, that you were chanted in the beginning time.
No. I wish I were. I only chanted 64 on Janmashtami. No. Oh, how did I do 64? No.
Okay, maybe I heard it wrong.
Okay, that question was free. Your next question is free. What did I say?
Well, there was another example you gave when you were writing to Prabhupada about certain austerities, and he said, Prabhupada was saying, okay, you should have 1 cup of chapatis, or 2 chapatis and 1 cup of dal, and you kept eating that for 2 weeks. And then 2 weeks later, you read the rest of the letter, and he said, if you can maintain that. And you guys were like, oh my God, we were hungry this whole time for nothing. So it's just the question of false austerities, how to understand when we can...
Well, that's his question, not your question.
I think that's what you meant. No? I'm too soft.
How we did 64 rounds every day? I don't know, because I... No, I didn't do that. Misunderstanding, yeah.
Prabhupada never said we should chant 64 rounds.
Generally said chant 16 good rounds. There's no credit to chant 64 bad rounds. Chant 16 good. Yeah. Generally, I mean, Prabhupada said at least 16. Guru Swami said, Prabhupada said 16 on the beads, unlimited off the beads. But we had a mission, so Prabhupada didn't push us to chant more. And most of us were young, so we couldn't do it anyway. We'd just fall asleep or something. So, in Prabhupada's time, well, there's a story. It's an interesting story. Maybe it doesn't apply now, but in Prabhupada's time, we were all very young and passionate. But maybe more important than that, Prabhupada had limited time to establish the movement, so he really wanted us to work hard to establish a movement. And at one Mayapur festival, one devotee was chanting 64 rounds a day. And the other devotees thought that was a little weird because this devotee was living separately. He didn't want to be with the devotees because then he would just be talking and socializing and he wouldn't be able to chant. So he built a tree house in Mayapur. And he lived in the tree house and just sat there, Hare Krišna, Hare Krišna. So one day they were on a morning walk and they said, Prabhupada, there's so-and-so living in a tree house. He doesn't associate with us. He doesn't do any service. He just chants 64 rounds. And so many times on morning walks, devotees would bait Prabhupada because they wanted him to say something because they didn't like this devotee and they didn't like that he was doing it. So they're baiting Prabhupada, hoping Prabhupada would say something about him that he shouldn't do it. Prabhupada didn't say anything. And then sometimes when the devotees baited Prabhupada and he didn't say anything, they would rebait him again. So they said something like, Prabhupada, he doesn't want to associate, he doesn't want to this and that. He just wants to chant 64 rounds a day. And Prabhupada said, as soon as you say, I want, that's Maya. Whoa. Interesting, isn't it? So the point was, at that time in the history of ISKCON, there was no encouragement for chanting 64 rounds. There was encouragement for spreading the movement because it was so direly needed. And we saw the example with Prabhupada. He just kept going. He never chanted more than 16. He just, he stayed up in the night translating. He just stayed up in the night chanting. So, but now that we're older and less passionate, there may be different considerations. But at least we didn't get a lot of encouragement for that. There's another story. On Ekadasi, we try to chant more rounds. So in the early days, Ekadasi, we had no breakfast. And everybody did not eat breakfast, had lunch, at 12 or 1, and everybody chanted 25 rounds. So there was a conversation about this with Prabhupada, and so one of the leaders said, so today, Prabhupada, the Sankirtan devotees, they should stay back, not go out and spread Krishna consciousness. And Prabhupada said, no. They don't have to chant 25, they just go out and do their service. He said, those who are staying back, who have time, they can do it. So that was how we were trained by Prabhupada. There's a movement, the world's going to hell, let's do something. So, but there's a time and place for everything. Like the other day we did 64, I was thinking we should do another retreat every day 64. There are retreats like that. It's just like 5 days, every day 64. One class in the morning. Yeah. We'll talk about it, think about it. Probably only get about 4 devotees to that retreat, but yes, So, you have a question number 2. Let her ask the second one.
I have a question.
But I have to tell the story he was telling, because nobody understood what he was saying. This is really interesting and funny. Would you like to hear it? This is 1971, when most of you were in a different body. You're in a different body, and yours truly was struggling away to establish the Hare Krišna movement so you could enjoy everything you have today. The disciples of Prabhupada, if they didn't do what they did, nothing would be here. So I'm not saying you should appreciate me, but just they did a lot. Even the ones that have gone away have done a lot. But anyway, as you know, there was no internet then, and the way we found out about Prabhupada's activities is his secretary would write, and then it would be copied and sent to us. But apparently what we got was only half of a letter. I guess it was copied, and then they forgot to give us the other half of the letter. So in the letter it said, you should only for lunch eat 1 cup of dal. 1 cup of dal is 250 milliliters, yeah. We think in ounces, but it's a cup. About this much. This is, and a cup is about to here, something like that. Everything below my fingers is the cup. So that much dal and 2 chapatis for lunch. And a very small breakfast and no dinner. What do you think? We were starving. We were so hungry. We used to distribute cake, little like carrot cakes or on Sankirtan. Everybody's like, can I distribute the cake? And then they'd run off so we couldn't see them eating it. We were starving, right? And then 2 weeks later, we got the second half of the letter, which said, well, if you can only digest 2 chapatis and a cup of dal, then eat that. But if you can digest 10 chapatis, then you can eat that. That was the second half of the letter. So, I don't know why he brought up that story, but that's the story. Yeah. And no one in the temple said anything. Everyone was starving and nobody said anything. Yeah, because we thought that's what Prabhupada wanted. All right, go ahead.
It's a nice story. Thank you for sharing. My second question is regarding, I also got that question in the retreat. And I'm wondering what is happening, because Krishna is not different than the name.
Right.
The name and Krishna, it's the same person. But when we talk about, when we chant without focus, all around is the mind, and there we chant a shadow of the name. So where is Krishna? Because he's the same person, the same name. So what is happening here?
What is happening? Nothing's happening. You remember the first time you went to the temple and you looked on the altar and you didn't see anything? You saw some flowers or something. How many of you looked at the altar and didn't see the deities? Raise your hand. The very first time you come to the temple. Only 2. You look at the altar, you saw the deities, but you didn't really see them. I think that happens to a lot of people. It's something like that. The holy name's there, but it's not there for you. So like, I can see the deity. Oh, the deities are nice. What time's prasadam? Am I seeing the deities? I can tell you what they're wearing, so I am seeing them, but there's nothing. I don't feel anything, so I'm not seeing them. So you are chanting, but is that the holy name you're hearing? Or you're hearing, Bhakti Siddhanta said, oh, there's a nice story. Ooh. Lord Chaitanya was in ecstasy and he fainted, and the only way devotees could wake him up was to chant. But he was like in Leela. He was fainting in ecstasy and he was in the Leelas. And they woke him up with chanting and he was really angry. Why did you wake me up? So some of the acharyas say that they were chanting, but it was bothering Lord Chaitanya because they took him out of Leela. So some acharyas say our chanting, if it's not done well, just bothers. It bothers Krishna. So how could Krishna be bothered by chanting? Well, it's not the name. We're not actually chanting the name, it's a sound. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur talks about this. That you can create the sound, but the sound itself is not Krishna, unless there's the bhakti in it. So it's the same if you look at the deity, but there's no bhakti, you don't see it. So it's not that it's not Krishna, it's just you don't see it. It's not that the holy name is not Krishna, but if it's not heard or chanted properly, then you don't have the experience of Krishna. Just like so many people saw Krishna, they didn't know who he was. And I think we all find that really difficult to understand. You imagine Krishna walks in here and everyone's like, oh, whatever. Like, we don't recognize him. That's like inconceivable, right? But it's right there in the Bhagavatam that hardly anybody understood who he was. And people were angry with him. They wanted to kill him. And all these demons came. They wanted to kill him. They couldn't see who he was because they were not devotees. So if you don't have bhakti mama vijananti, if you don't have bhakti, you don't understand Krishna, even he's standing in front of you. So the holy name's standing in front of us and we just think it's a sound. We don't think it's Krishna. We have that experience all the time. So I always remind myself, this is Krishna. Krishna's here right now. He's sitting with me. And Prabhupada said, Krishna is thinking of you when you think of him. So when you're chanting and thinking of Krishna, he's thinking of you. So you can think, Krishna's right here now, coming in his name, and he's thinking of me. That's a beautiful thought. Have you ever thought that Krishna's thinking of you? Any of you? Me? Why would he think of me? What did I do? I'm a nonsense rascal. Why would he think of me? You're chanting his name, he's thinking of you. You're thinking of him, he's thinking of you. Isn't that beautiful? Okay. Yes. Last question. All other questions have... I can answer more questions, but unofficially. Like, we have to let you go and take... What? Let you go and take prasadam or arti or what? Announcements and prasadam. But I'll stay here. You can ask more questions and I can sign books if you like. Yes?
My first question is how to make our own arrangements in tune with Shri Krishna arrangement.
How to make our own arrangements in line, in tune
with Shri Krishna arrangement.
Well, the best thing is to get guidance from a senior devotee who can help you. But the principle is everything you have is for Krishna, including you. Your body, your mind, your senses, everything for Krishna. Everything is for Krishna's pleasure. So you have to think, how can you utilize everything for him?
My second question is...
Is that clear or is that too ambiguous?
It's okay. My second question is how to humbly surrender to Shri Krishna's will and Shri Krishna's heart.
That's
a tip. How to
do it?
A tip.
Deep.
Yes.
A tip. Oh yeah. Well, there's a lecture, and after the lecture, Prabhupada was asked, how long does it take to surrender to Krishna? Have you seen that lecture? Prabhupada said, 1 moment. one moment only. But in Prabhupada's mind, surrender simply meant, actually, I was with Prabhupada when he was asked this same question. I'm just remembering. Somewhere in my brain it's coming up. I was in Los Angeles in the garden with Prabhupada, and one of the lawyers that was helping us in our Sankirtan with legal difficulties, he came to meet Prabhupada and he said, how long does it take to surrender? And Prabhupada said the same thing one moment. He said, simply, you accept Krishna as God and you're surrendered.
Thank you.
So when you accept Krishna as God, and that means once you accept Him as God, you accept you're not God. So that's, now I'm surrendered, I'm not God. Prabhupada gave a class on impersonal philosophy. And he summarized the class and said, God is great, you are not great, therefore you are not God. That's surrender. That's not easy, is it? To think I'm not great. Is it? It's not even easy to think I'm not God. I'm not the controller, the enjoyer. So surrender means to accept that He's the enjoyer and controller. But a better word for surrender is love, because if you love someone, you will not compete with them. So try to love Krishna. As a result of your love, you will surrender automatically.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. We're going overtime. I might get fired and they won't let me come back. Yes.
Mahatma Prabhu, religiosity and spirituality. Religiosity is like an external form of spirituality, and the spirituality is internal energy.
Could be, yeah. The spirituality is you could say that, the internal cultivation.
Devotees are not religious, or we should be and religious and spiritualist.
Well,
union.
It depends how you use the word, because you could use the word religious as spiritual. But devotees are not ritualistic. There's a problem that's described in Nectar of Instruction, that you're attached to following rules, but you don't know why, or you don't know the purpose of the rule, or you think the perfection is to perfectly follow the rule. But the perfection is to follow the rule with perfect bhakti. So you can follow the rule perfectly without bhakti. So that would be considered religion. Perfectly following rules, but bhakti is not there, or less. And the qualities of a bhakta are not there. So I'm serving Krishna, but I'm not relating well with the devotees. That's not bhakti. Yeah. Is that okay? Okay, we have to end here. Thank you all. It's nice seeing everyone. Nice being here with you. And Hare Krishna. Now it's time for a word from our sponsor.
I don't know about sponsor.
Okay.
If you hand over your money to me, I'll probably lose it. I'm just saying. So if you're going to hand over money, I'm going to lose it. It's a guarantee. So, can we have a show of hands? Who can speak Slovenian here? Who can speak the language, the local language? Okay. All of you. Who can read Slovenian as well? Can you read Slovenian? Okay. What about Croatian? Can you read Croatian? Okay. This is intimidating. So I must confess, I'm very, very envious and jealous. And I say this in front of my guru as well. Because the whole wide world doesn't have access to spiritual but religious. But the first people on the face of this planet Earth, amongst all the demigods and the Gandharvas, and everyone across the 3 planetary systems, only you Slovenians have access to spiritual but not religious. So Haribol to you. my theory is that Maharaj loves Slovenia so much he wants you guys to get a head start on how good this book is. Because if anyone ever told you like you have a weird sika or you wear a weird dhoti, like what is this dragon tattoo on your face, these questions come up. These things are very real. Even for myself, when I go out to distribute books or share Krishna consciousness, people can be very confused about what is this makeup you're wearing, you know, why do you look like that? What is this Hare Krishna you're chanting? But this book will explain to you how we can share it not only to our parents or to our children or to our schools, but to the whole wide world. Because when I was just reading some of these things as a sneak peek, I was thinking, why did I not know this in the past? And you can do as well. So 55 years of experience that will transform your life, I promise you. Because the grace of Mahatma Prabhu is he's putting all this realization and experience to show you the way, so you don't have to not suffer, but learn the ways that he did, right? So we can apply it into our lives and make the magic happen. So, it's priceless. It's millions of euros for one book, but for you Slovenians, only 10 euros per book. Sounds like a deal? Okay, Haribo, amazing. Thank you guys. We have more announcements. Are you guys ready? Oh, and by the way, every book has a name on it, like we said in the story. So there was one story of one person that had a Bhagavad Gita, and he wrote his name on it, but he lost interest weeks later. And then 7 years later, he was looking for a Bhagavad Gita again. He wanted to look for the same version of Prabhupada's version. He was in a different country, different circumstances, completely different background. When he went to the store and he bought a Bhagavad Gita, guess which one it was? It was the same one with his name. Another story, there was someone who wanted as well to get into spiritual life. He was given a Bhagavad Gita, he said no. He was brought to the temple, he said no. And many weeks passed by, he got so many signs. He was going for fishing, and he was staying there for hours. Nothing came up. He used to be a vegetarian as well. Nothing came up. He was fishing, he was fishing, he was fishing. He picked out one plastic bag from the bottom of the river, and he picked it out. Guess what was in that bag? The Bhagavad Gita.
Spiritual but not religious.
Spiritual but not religious. Your name is on the book. The only thing between you and the book is Maharaj signing the book. Can you please sign the book? Say Haribo! So those who said Haribo now must take a book. That's the deal. Okay? So that's for the book. It's waiting for you here. We have copies for everyone outside. Don't fight over them. Maharaj will be here. I'll be his bodyguard. But if Maya pops in and you say, no, I don't want a book now, I want a book later, I have an idea. You want to hear it? Okay, you guys ready? Close your eyes. Close your eyes. Are you guys ready? Maharaj, are you ready? Well, you saw it. You made the shirt. Say no to Maya! Haribo! Okay, this is like the best Sankirtan shirt in the world. And also, if you're eating too much prasadam and everyone says, okay, stop eating prasadam, say, my mantra is, we can say it all together. Chant, dance, feast, and repeat. Because Hare Krishna's party the best. And then Krishna takes care of the rest. And if you want therapy, no really, like this is serious. If you want therapy, then therapists charge like hundreds of euros for one session. And it's like, they don't even tell you to chant Hare Krishna. It's kind of crazy. But you go to your local one and you tell them all problems start when the? And all the problems stop when? And then you say Haribo, spirit soul. Okay. Huh? So what? I don't understand. So I wish I could understand your language. It's so beautiful. What did he say? I need a translator.
He was saying English. It was in English.
Discount 10 euros. I mean, if you get, how about this? If you get a few shirts and a book, we'll give you some sort of deal. Would that work?
Yeah, of course.
And a signature. You get a signature. It should be like £1 million. Huh? This is, well, it's spiritual.
No, you get a discount if you buy a lot. Yeah, quantity discounts available.
Anyways, everything, spiritual money goes to this. It remains in your spiritual bank account because it's spiritual.
Hare
So
Krishna.
this is eternal, long-term investment. You're never going to lose. Okay, so please get the books before they're done. And we need some bodyguards because people are going to run to the books, right? Okay, Hare Krishna, dear. Haribo. Okay, get the first one. Waiting. Yeah, I thought I'd bring a pen. Oh, here's one. Thank you.
Hare Krišna. Najlepša hvala. Thank you very much. Torej, samo še par kratkih obvestil bi povedala, če še malo potrpite, prosim. Sicer, njegova milost Mahatma prabhu bo z nami ostal do 5.8. V kratkem pa nas bo obiskal njegova svetost Čandramavli s vami in sicer od 8. do 11.8. ob tej priložnosti vas vabimo na Holy Name Festival, ki se bo začel 8. avgusta in trajal do 10. avgusta. Torej, vabljeni. Danes je presadam duhovna pojedina sponzorirana in sicer sponzorirala je mama od Špele Šket, na novo preimenovane v Sarva Mangala Rada, ki je bila ravno danes inicirana. In sicer njena mama je sponzorirala in vas naproša za blagoslove na njeni duhovni poti. Haribol! Da je danes ta Sunday Feast uspel, so sodelovali mnogi bakte, tako da nekaj bi jih naštela. Božanstva so preoblekli, torej božanstva je preoblekel in izbral obleke Giridhari prabhu, garlande sta naredili Tulja Mataji, Mohini Rada Mataji, ikebane Sašini Šiva Mataji, kuhalo jih je pa kar veliko danes in sicer učenci njegove svetosti Džajpatake s vami, z Vrađa Prema na čelu Tapta Kančanadi prabhu, Abhinanda Nitai prabhu, Premananda Prakash prabhu, Jagannath Pati Nitai Chandra prabhu, Mahakoša prabhu in seveda še ostali. Prav tako so zelenjavo pripravili Vrađa Lila, Raj Vrađa Lila, Param Gati in še mnogi drugi bakte, tako da bi se vsem prav lepo zahvalila. Zahvalila bi se pa tudi Madhava Mišri za ozvočenje in Pudžariju Devendra Prabhuju. Tako da, evo, zdaj pa nas čaka še zadnji del in sicer, še to bi povedala, danes je program Plus od 19.